Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to today's tropical weather outlook for July 13th, 2026. Today, we're going to take a look at what's happening in the tropics, including the Pacific, the Atlantic. We're especially going to talk about sea surface temperatures in the Gulf, as it could be a factor for potential tropical development later this week in the Gulf if things continue to uptrend in the models like they have today, because water temperatures in the northern Gulf are very, very warm. In fact, near record-breaking in some spots. So we're going to go over all of that and why you need to be keeping a close eye out on the tropics here over this upcoming week, especially, once again, if you are in the Gulf. So, with that being said, let's get started looking at today's tropical weather bulletin according to the National Hurricane Center. Nothing expected yet from the National Hurricane Center in the next 7 days. Although, once again, as I said before, we are watching the northern Gulf here as some of the models are latching on to potentially some development once we get towards the end of the week. There's still a little bit of uncertainty, but I will show you that some of the reliable models that have been pretty good so far this year are showing development there. So as I said before, I think more than likely, maybe we might get an area highlighted from the National Hurricane Center pretty soon. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe even not until Wednesday, but I do feel like eventually we will get something here. In the Eastern Pacific, though, the activity just continues. We've been talking about this for the last several days. Things are really beginning to ramp up here in the Eastern Pacific, and every single day, more things keep popping up. We now have 4 areas here in the Eastern Pacific with at least a moderate chance of development. One of them, a high chance of development, Invest 96E, and we now have 3 invests active in the Eastern Pacific right now. First off, with Invest 96E, 70% chance of development, so high. So, again, at least 4 areas with a moderate chance, one of them at least a high chance. 70% in the next 48 hours, and then in the next 7 days, 90%. This area, too, as well, might be potentially the first shot at maybe a strong hurricane here in the Eastern Pacific, and we might even have to watch this area as well for it to become a decent storm, too, which is also at a 60% chance right now. And then the Central Pacific is also producing its fair share of areas that are trying to develop. Invest 90C, which is a little bit of a curious story. It's kind of been going back and forth between having a chance at developing and then not having a chance at developing, and then being designated an invest to being taken off the invest bulletin board, and then being put back on. But it looks like, at least as of today, the chances have been going back up for Invest 90C. And then we have Invest 91C as well. So lots of activity in the Eastern Pacific. And as I've said before, this is only just the beginning. Here's a satellite shot, though, going back to the Atlantic right now. And you can see, on the other hand, nothing much happening in the Atlantic, especially across the deep tropics here. It's all dry, it's all unfavorable, it's all stable. Very, very strong wind shear, especially throughout the Caribbean here. Some wind shear values are being recorded up to 100 knots, at least according to the latest wind shear value maps. And 100 knots of shear, quite intense, but, not unexpected because of the El Nino pattern that we have this year. I mean, in general, El Nino kind of just sets up the upper level jet to be screaming from west to east throughout the entire deep tropics in the Atlantic, plus the fact that the atmosphere is generally stable due to sinking air that sets up in the Atlantic. So just unfavorable factor piled on top of unfavorable factor, and things are very much shut down throughout the deep tropics right now. The main area we are watching, though, is, and I've said this before, we're going to have to keep watching these frontal systems and these, pieces of energy, these MCSs that come off the continent of America, or at least, the continental United States, and then move either southeastward and eventually move off the coast of the southeast coast of the U.S., or move south and sometimes actually end up in the Gulf. And that's kind of something we're seeing set up right now. We already kind of have a frontal system here along the northern Gulf. And then we have a piece of energy here that's over the southeast. And we're going to have to watch this system here, as this will be responsible for seeing whether or not we're able to get this piece of energy to be able to move its way out over the open Gulf, enough so that we could get something to consolidate here. And we'll also have to watch and see how much time it spends over water, and see whether or not we're actually able to get development this upcoming week. So once again, we are looking at development closer to home, and obviously for right now, absolutely no development in the tropics whatsoever. Although you could kind of say anywhere that is where we're talking about development over an ocean is tropical development. But I think you get my point. The deep tropics in the Atlantic right now completely shut down, and we are watching for development close to home as a homegrown system. But in the Eastern Pacific, though, we are absolutely looking for development in the deep tropics right now, and we continue to remain in this very favorable pattern here in the Eastern Pacific that's only going to get more and more and more favorable. And you can see lots of convective activity present right now, and it stretches westward all the way into the Central Pacific and even into the Western Pacific, but mainly in the Eastern Pacific right now. First of all, you could see a very nice juicy piece of energy here off the coast of Mexico, and this is Invest 96E, which is more than likely going to develop within the next 2 or 3 days here as it moves on off to the west-northwest, and again, very likely will become our first hurricane, maybe even major hurricane of the Eastern Pacific season. I was about to say the first named storm, but we've already gotten that. I think if this does form, this would more than likely be the 5th named storm of the season for the Eastern Pacific, but definitely the first hurricane and maybe even the first major. And taking a look at sea surface temperature anomalies across the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic right now. First off, the Eastern Pacific, and again, it's really only it's only a matter of time. It's a ticking time bomb right now, and especially the sea surface temperature anomalies here off the coast of Mexico and in the far eastern portions of the tropical Eastern Pacific are record warm right now. Many anomalies here as much as 2, even 3 degrees Celsius above normal, on top of the near record strong El Nino that is developing right now. I mean, things are just, they can't get more favorable for the Pacific right now. So 96E here will develop in record warm sea surface temperature anomalies. We'll have rocket fuel to work with, and that alone is probably one of the biggest reasons why we will more than likely get a very strong storm here. Of course, if atmospheric conditions allow, but I'm pretty sure if conditions are favorable enough, a major hurricane is pretty possible, and in the very least, I think a hurricane is very likely. But if we go to the Atlantic, on the other hand, we do have some pretty interesting pockets of warmth here, especially in the subtropics. The eastern Atlantic too, near the Canary Current and off the northwestern coast of Africa, that is also warm as well. But let's zoom in here on the Gulf, where, as you can see, sea surface temperature anomalies in the Gulf are very, very warm. In fact, pockets here of 1, well, most of the Gulf actually is at least 1, to especially pockets here off the coast of, northern Florida, the shelf water of the northern Gulf Coast, as much as 2 degrees Celsius above normal. And some of these anomalies here as well are near record-breaking too. And a lot of this is a result of the fact that we had that heat ridge that set up about a week ago and just really pumped a lot of heat southward from the Caribbean and from the tropics northward into the entire eastern half of the United States, and we had sizzling hot temperatures for many. And again, I told you before, it hit 100 degrees here in New York City, and doesn't hit 100 degrees often in New York City, even though it does get very warm and very hot and humid almost every summer. But you get the general picture. It was very hot, and these very warm anomalies too also extend well up along the entire East Coast, even just off the coast of the Mid-Atlantic, New Jersey, and even Long Island. We have sea surface temperature anomalies 1 to 2 degrees Celsius above normal. But it matters that we have these very warm sea surface temperature anomalies because, as I've said before, we're going to have to watch the Gulf here, especially the northeastern Gulf, for potential development this upcoming week. And very warm, in fact, near record warm sea surface temperature anomalies like we have is definitely only going to help in terms of allowing for more heat to be used into the atmosphere, given the amount of heat that we currently have in the ocean right now. And I kind of want to show you just the progress of the warmth that we've seen in the Gulf for at least the last 2 weeks. And I was given this GIF animation, I believe it's a GIF animation by one of my friends here. This looks like it's from the University of Miami website, and this goes all the way from late June into early July, pretty much the entire timeline of the last few weeks when things are really warm here, especially across the eastern half of the U.S. And just look at how much the northern Gulf has warmed. I mean, beforehand, if we go back to the very beginning of the animation here, I guess the first date was June 27th. I mean, the Gulf was already very warm. We had widespread sea surface temperatures, for the most part, judging by the scale, roughly 28 to 29 degrees Celsius, and obviously that itself is very warm. And then we had a few pockets of 30 in the northern Gulf, but then just look at how much that changed dramatically since just late June. Just the past 2 weeks alone, we go from, let's stop it here at the end of the frame. Well, first of all, we go from mostly 28, 29, some pockets of 30, which is still very warm, to the latest frame, which was from 2 days ago, but I don't think it really matters. The northern Gulf, widespread areas of 30 and even 31 degrees Celsius here across the northern Gulf, with even pockets of 32, especially along the western coast of Florida. My goodness. Very, very warm. And this, too, is going to be rocket fuel for development. This is a sizzling warm northern Gulf coast right now. And even today, the latest sea surface temperatures as of today, July 13th, since the latest frame here was 2 days ago, we still have those very warm sea surface temperatures, especially throughout the northern Gulf. I mean, many areas still seeing upwards of 30 degrees Celsius, and still widespread 31s all throughout the northern Gulf, especially as you get closer towards the Gulf Coast. And there's even a reading of what looks like 32 degrees Celsius here. So very, very warm sea surface temperatures. It's going to be rocket fuel for sure when it comes to tropical development. And speaking of that tropical development, let's take a look at the models now to show you what we're looking at. And I'm going to start off with the European AI, because this was the main model that's been showing development here in the Gulf for the past few days, and it's been consistent ever since. And you can see what happens here. We start off with the piece of energy that's over the southeast. I've showed you this before when I looked at the satellite area earlier. We generally have some sort of low pressure here, or MCS centered over, I guess, Alabama, Tennessee right now, and then there's kind of a frontal system that's connected with this energy, and then it kind of breaks off, and the front here kind of breaks down, and then the MCS energy kind of dives southward into the Gulf, and then you can see, once it's especially over water here, we start to see some consolidation of vorticity and definitely a low pressure that tries to develop and then consolidate with the vorticity values slowly strengthening before this then moves inland over northern Florida. And then I guess another trough to the north picks it up and kind of strings it up along the east coast. So the European AI, this run, kind of keeping it very close to the coastline. So whatever does develop, if that's the case, will probably be limited by land interaction and time over water. But thank goodness, because if it had more time over water, it would be bathing in sizzling hot sea surface temperatures like we have right now in the northern Gulf. And I'm pretty sure more than likely we would still have these kind of temperatures by the time we get to the end of the week here. So we'll see what happens, though. I mean, the models will change. In fact, let me show you the earlier model run from the 0Z when they had this energy kind of digging down even further into the Gulf, they had this spending a lot more time over water, and because of that, we had a much stronger and more potent system because of it. So part of the story here will really be watching to see whether or not whatever piece of energy here dives down south enough, and the trough here to the north is weak enough, or it allows for more time for this system to move out over water more and spend more time over water in the northern Gulf, so it can consolidate and try to develop. But either way, looks like a pretty decent signal here on the European AI. And taking a look at the ensembles as well, also quite a few ensemble members showing development here. All of them kind of, again, concentrated in the northeastern Gulf too. And as I said before, the Gulf off the southeast coast and in general closer to home will be the areas that we need to watch for this year for development. And of course, you have to factor in as well the record and sizzling hot sea surface temperatures of the northern Gulf too. That'll also play a factor in whether or not we're able to get development. On the other hand, though, let's take a look at the GFS and see what they show. And the GFS, I guess, is on the other side of the story, where you can see they don't really break this piece of energy off at all, though I'm kind of curious as to what the GFS does here, because they have this piece of energy moving westward and not even doing anything, but there is no piece of energy that dives down southward and emerges over the northern Gulf. So I guess the GFS is not sold on anything happening just yet. And I'm pointing this out to show you that there's still a little bit of uncertainty across the models. So whatever does happen here is not 100%. It is still not very likely we will see development right now. And I just wanted to throw that out there because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people that are seeing all of the talks online, the screenshots and whatnot, and people are probably thinking that development is very certain and there is a tropical storm coming at the end of the week or something like that. Or people are going to be saying that, oh, we're all hyping this up, we're not even sure whether or not this is going to develop. And you're right, we're not sure if this is going to develop. And the discrepancy here between the models, the GFS and the AI here, these two models, look at the huge discrepancy we have, one showing development and the other one not showing development yet. So uncertainty remains, and the best thing we'll do, or the best thing we can do right now, is just generally watch the model trends over the next few days, and obviously wait for when we actually do get word from the National Hurricane Center as well. And I guess to prove that there's also a lot of uncertainty, well, the National Hurricane Center has not yet said anything about any potential development in the northern Gulf, but I'm pretty sure we will get that at some point. But again, uncertainty still remains, so right now we are still kind of in the watch and see phase to see whether or not we actually do get development here in the northern Gulf. But the chance is there. I do think the chance is there, and I'd say keep an eye out on the tropics here over the next week, regardless. All right, finally, I want to show you what's happening in the Eastern Pacific, since we can't ignore that, since the Eastern Pacific is going to get very active here over the next few days, and just showing you on the GFS. Let me take you out to the next 7 days. I think the model run speaks for itself. We have one storm here, Invest 96E right now. That probably develops within the next 24 to 48 hours. And then maybe might begin rapidly intensifying in the next 3 days or so, and then more than likely becomes a major hurricane, or in the very least a hurricane. I'm not going to jinx myself and say this will become a major hurricane, because you can't be too sure about that right now, but will absolutely become a storm here in the Pacific. Move on out to sea, so those along the Mexican coastline will not have to worry for direct, tropical impacts. But then we have something else that develops around 7 days out, and then something else here pops up too behind it, and it's just going to be a non-ending, continuous train of activity that'll more than likely just last from here on out. So things are really beginning to ramp up in the Eastern Pacific, as I said they would, and now it is beginning to happen. So lots to watch here in the tropics over the next week. With that being said, though, I'm going to end today's video since I have nothing else to give you today. but I'm pretty sure this upcoming week we probably will have a lot on our plate to watch between the Eastern Pacific and whatever happens here in the Gulf. So, my best word of advice for you right now is to just keep your eyes out on the tropics, and whatever happens, happens. If we get development, we get development. If we don't get development, we don't get development. But at the end of the day, let's watch the tropics and see what Mother Nature presents us. With that being said, I hope all of you guys enjoy the rest of your day and evening. I'll be back tomorrow with more, so if you want to stay tuned for that, and you want to stay tuned for these videos, which not only be doing tomorrow, but every single day throughout the week and throughout the rest of the hurricane season, please make sure to subscribe once again and turn on the notification bell so you can get videos the moment I upload them. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. I'm Danilo Evangelista. I'll talk with you guys again tomorrow.